Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and Alt Hero Q. If you're not aware, I've mentioned it before, but we do have the Alt Hero Q 2.1 campaign going. If you're interested in checking out what that is, you can go to Archaven Comics and archavencomics.com and see what we're up to. But an interesting email appeared in my inbox today, and it was kind of fascinating because I'm going to read it to you here. It actually said that breaking. Multiple sources tell me that Neocon magazine Weekly Standard is expected to close its operations in a few weeks. It had lost many subscribers since the 2016 election as its never-Trumper editors, Bill Kristol, Stephen Hayes, and Charlie Sykes, publicly aligned with the left. Now, what you have to understand about the neocons is that they have always been leftists. In fact, they have not only always been leftists, they have always been significantly to the left of the American Democratic Party. They are actually socialists originally. They're actually originally communist Bolsheviks. And they were from the Trotsky branch that lost out to Stalin. And a lot of them ended up coming over to the United States. A lot of them were already in the United States, but others came over to the United States. And so, and this is not a secret. You can read all about it. In fact, Bill Kristol's father, Irving Kristol, who founded the leading neoconservative magazine Commentary, which I used to read actually in college. It used to be quite an interesting magazine, a very well-written magazine. But you need to keep in mind that they have never, ever been pro-American. The only reason that they suddenly transform themselves into these fake conservatives, they couldn't even bring themselves to call themselves conservatives because there's nothing conservative about their policies. They turned against the Soviet Union because Stalin beat them. And that's exactly the same thing that we saw after the Russians kicked out the people that were pillaging them. They called them the oligarchs. What a lot of people don't realize is that many, if not most, of the oligarchs in the early post-Soviet period were Jewish. And so all of this anti-Russia stuff is no different than the Cold War neoconservative anti-Soviet stuff. It's all about getting revenge on the faction that defeated them in Russia. And so when you look at these guys, when you look at the Bill Kristols, the Max Boots, etc., they are Trotskyites. There is nothing American about them. There is nothing capitalist about them. Now obviously they've been influenced by their time in the USA, but people like Ben Shapiro, people like Bill Kristol, they're all fakes. Every single one of them. And so when you look at what they advocate, what they always advocate is the same thing that Trotsky pushed, which is global revolution, world revolution. All right. The New World Order of Herbert Walker Bush was the neocon argument for world revolution. The difference was that it was being cloaked in democratic terms rather than in communist terms. And so when you look at the when you look at who they are, what they stood for, what they pushed, you can see very, very clearly that the neoconservatives were never conservative. They never even really had any serious interest in American politics. That's what you need to keep in mind. If you notice, all these people ever talk about is foreign policy, because they don't give a damn about America. They don't give a damn about the American people. The only reason that they're interested is because the U.S. military was, for several decades, the most powerful military force in the world. And so they wanted to have the ability to utilize it, or at least bend it to their advantage. And so now you have to understand, a lot of people go, oh, Jews, Israel, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You have to understand that the neoconservatives are not Israelis. Now, there are various alliances and so forth. But also, just as the neoconservatives were affected by living in the United States and learning to manipulate the U.S. Political process to their own perceived strategic advantage, the Israelis were learning how to survive on their own. Now, yes, I know that Israel gets a lot of financial support from the United States. Keep in mind that Egypt does too. Okay. Also, a lot of the aid is actually giving them money to buy U.S. equipment. So, you could make a case, as a number of Israelis have made the case, that this is just a way to subsidize American weapons manufacturers. And so, there's plenty of Israelis, Martin Van Creveld being one of them. No, Matt, don't say stupid things like this. Survive on their own by being subsidized entirely by USA? LOL. Dude, you're fucking gamma. Just go. You've no idea whatsoever what's going on. Do the math. Look at the amount of military and financial aid being provided. That does not even begin to account for the difference between, say, the Israeli standard of living and the Egyptian or Jordanian standard of living. Okay? They have achieved a lot. It may not be the miracle in the desert that is portrayed, but if you look at the history of that region, then you understand that a lot of people living in Israel have worked very, very hard to make it a better place to live. And so, and my point that I'm trying to make is that there are plenty of Israelis, very intelligent Israelis, who, number one, do not like or trust these neo-Trotskyites. They think it's a really horrible idea to be dependent on any way on the United States, because they're not stupid. They know that that support is going to come to an end sooner or later. You need to keep in mind that for the first, until the neoconservatives became influential, Israel was closer to the Soviet Union. So you had the Trotskyites got defeated by Stalin and made their base in the United States. But Israel was still working closely with the Stalin-run Soviet Union. Okay, so like Ellerin says, Zionists are doing what they think is best for Israel. Yes. But here's the thing. People who haven't lived in Israel for 60 years almost certainly have a very different idea and a very different perspective of what is best for Israel than people who have actually lived there their whole lives, who've lived there for 3-4 generations. And like Dream Eater just said, a majority non-white USA will stop supporting Israel. There's no question. It's going to end. The U.S. support for Israel is going to end one way or another. Actually, here's an Israeli. He says, America should look out for itself as any nation should. Israel looks out for itself as it should. And if it means screwing America, surprise, surprise, they will do it. Of course they will. And so, and the thing is that whether it is an economic breakdown, whether it is the changing demographics, the good times are going to end. And intelligent Israelis know this. And, this may surprise you, but a lot of Israelis do not like the whole idea of, hey, let's have America go to war for us and create greater Israel by picking fights everywhere from Afghanistan to Iran, because they know that they're more likely to get attacked in response as the result of the neocons trying to establish this world revolution. Remember, the Trotskyites, the neocons, are world revolutionaries. They always have been. They were when they were Bolsheviks. They are now that they call themselves neocons. Their whole objective is world revolution. So there are a lot of Israelis who understand that world revolution is not something that they want to support. They want to build up their nation and help it become more prosperous and give their kids better lives, etc., just like any other people with their own national homeland do. The problem, of course, with the neocons is that the neocons do not live in their homeland. And the neocons are attempting to utilize the resources of the United States, and they have been able to a certain extent, to utilize the United States to achieve their various goals. That's why Russia and Ukraine are on the verge of war and have been on the verge of war. That's why Georgia started a war, a very poorly advised war against Russia in 2008. Luke says, where does Van Creveld stand on all this? Van Creveld speaks considerably more harshly about the neocons than I do. So when you look at what's happening, Bush is dead. The Bush dynasty is done. Nobody is paying attention to these neocon flagships anymore. A lot of people used to read the Weekly Standard and think, oh, this is a great conservative magazine. Well, now they don't see the relevance to it anymore, because the whole point of neoconservatism relied upon first the Cold War and then a monopolar world where the United States was the single global power. Well, that's no longer the relevant. The U.S. is no longer a global, a singular global power. The U.S. has no ability to intervene directly in Eastern Europe. The U.S. has no ability to intervene in the China Sea. China is slowly but surely expanding its regional power And it won't surprise me if we see China announce its version of the Monroe Doctrine in the not too distant future. And the trends are very clear. The trends do not favor the United States at all. Everything that we see in the United States points to continued decline, continued inability to maintain its global military empire, a total inability to defend its 1,000 bases all over the world. And so when you see this, it won't be what you're seeing now. Weekly Standard was never a money-making enterprise. It was always something that was funded by its donors, its backers, and those backers are now pulling their financial support because they can see that nobody's reading it, nobody's paying any attention, and so I think we're going to see the same thing happen in the relatively near future to National Review. National Review has no reason to exist anymore. It was always a mix. It was always a mix of, neoconservatism and the sort of genteel Buckley, only so far, standing athwart history and saying, don't go any farther. So it still has some relevance. National Review still potentially has some relevance, except for the fact that its writers are taking all of these left-wing positions on homosexuality, on the whole transgender thing. So people are increasingly abandoning it because it's no longer relevant to either the current foreign policy situation, and it's certainly no longer relevant to the domestic cultural war. To the extent that it is relevant, they're on the wrong side. Adam's right. Shapiro just parrots whomever puts the lights on in his studio. Yeah, I mean he's been a total media whore since he was a little kid. He has no original thoughts whatsoever. He even told me as much, that he had a crisis of conscience when he was, 14 or something, because all he was doing was parroting the talking points that were given to him, and so he didn't like that. But obviously he came to terms with it once he realized how much you can make when you're doing that. Let's see. The conservative case for trans babies. The neocons will simply rebrand like the Marxists always do. Well, yeah, they certainly will rebrand, and they are rebrand. I mean, that's what do you think the intellectual dork web is? Or as I prefer to refer to them, the ineffectual dork web. I mean, I was making fun of this today. Tonight, Dave Rubin interviews Ben Shapiro about Jordan Peterson. And tune in tomorrow night for a special episode when Jordan Peterson appears to talk about Ben Shapiro's interview of Ben Weinstein. I mean, these guys are more incestuous than the new atheists were. And I didn't think that was possible. I mean, here's the thing I don't understand. Why would you ever why would you ever pay any attention to Dave Rubin or Ben Shapiro or any of these guys? They never say anything relevant or significant. And their favorite thing to do is, stand around interviewing each other. It's like tonight, Jordan Peterson appears on Ben Shapiro's show. And tomorrow, Ben Shapiro appears on Joe Rogan's show, after which Joe Rogan is going to appear on Dave Rubin. I mean, who cares? I mean, they make the new atheist circle jerk look reserved by comparison. I mean, the funny thing is, people are even beginning to notice this. No, Charles, you're so close. You're so close. The correct way to say it is the 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 intellectual dark web are more incestuous than Jordan Peterson and his grandmother. By the way, that is extremely effective rhetoric. Oh, I'm sorry. BM Wood. I got to give him credit. BM Wood said he came up with that too, as did Charles Carlson. And you know, just for variety, you can also throw in the cousin, if you like. But anyhow, Buddha says, someone pointed this out, they only argue amongst themselves, never speak with anyone outside the circle. Well, that's what the neocons always did. You know, they loved to set up these debates and arguments about, you know, should the United States be giving $3 billion a year or $4 billion a year to Israel? You know, at no point did they ever want to allow anyone to get in there and say, well, do we really want to be doing this at all? And so, you know, this is the way that the neocons and their spiritual ilk work. They always attempt to limit the framework of discussion, to limit the area of acceptable thought. And so, let's see, how do you prove that you're not a neocon? Well, it's pretty simple. If you are not an advocate of invading every country around the world, you can't be a neocon, because neocons require that. You know, they love nothing more than to explain why American greatness requires the establishment of an empire. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Do you want that new car in red or blue? I don't want a new car. Tucker Carlson has proven his merit in this area. I think he has to date. I've always thought well of Tucker Carlson. I mean, Vox, save it for the Owen Benjamin talk. Why would I save anything for talking with Owen? Knowing Owen, we're going to end up talking about, you know, some topic that I can't possibly predict. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, I'm a huge fan. If you read Jordanetics, you will probably have noted that I end Appendix C with a quote from Marcus Aurelius. Daniel says, Vox, I just made my dad upset because I'm getting my Italian citizenship recognized. Why not? I mean, que bella. You know, it's... I mean, although Portugal, I got to say, though, Portugal's not bad. I know a number of folks from Portugal, and, you know, I think there are a lot of places that could be worse in the next 20 years. I mean, granted, I prefer Italy myself, but, you know, Portugal's certainly more affordable, which is nice. Congratulations on taking Andalusia, Vox. Let's see. Why did they throw Owen under the bus? I don't know that they did. I mean, if you're talking about Hollywood, it's because they realized that he wasn't interested in playing their reindeer games. If you're talking about the Shapiro, Peterson, whatever crowd, I don't think that he was ever in with them. Maybe Joe Rogan, but I don't know. You got to keep in mind, I don't do media. I never even did much alternative media. So I don't really know much about, you know, who is talking with whom and who is appearing on whose show. I pay literally no attention to that. It's not of interest to me. I made the decision See, this is what's funny. This is funny. Jordan Manners, who we can tell is a gammer because he says, LOL, your dad is getting plowed in the ass right now. See, you have absolutely no idea. In fact, if you knew anything about my dad and his relationship with people in prison, you would be urinating on yourself rather than say anything at all to me. My dad in jail is like the fucking godfather. I'm not kidding you. You know, keep in mind, he is somebody who completed a doctoral program at MIT, so he's very smart. And since he doesn't have much to do, what he occupies himself with is working as a jailhouse lawyer for his fellow inmates. And the last time he had counted, which was like 4 years ago, he had gotten people out of a collective 1,100 years of jail. Because a lot of the people that are imprisoned in his federal prison got railroaded. You know, had just, I mean, some of them were not even in the same state at the time that the crime was committed. But they had such a totally hapless, hopeless public defender that, that they just got, thrown in jail. And plus, these guys are not very smart, And so, anyhow, Dad actually has, as he describes them, 2 extremely large bodyguards, people who have appointed themselves as bodyguards, and not because he's in any danger, but basically they accompany him to the library and then basically stand at the doors of the library and don't let anybody in the library while he's in there unless he tells them they can come in, like because he wants to work on their case. And so it was kind of funny because, he was just describing this, and it wasn't like a big deal. This was just like, part of a letter that he had sent. And Space Money just started laughing because we're like, it's like that, final scene in The Godfather, and so, he's like friends with the warden and everything. So, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I mean, the single funniest thing that I have heard since my dad got sentenced to federal prison for whatever it was, 15 years. The funniest thing I've ever heard him say write is he said, it's a little strange, but I'm far more respected in here than I ever was as a technology CEO. So I find that to be amusing. Anyhow, none of your business. See, this is stupid. He should only help nationalists who will fight for a free America. The rest can rot in prison. The reason that he's gotten these people out of 1,100 collective years of jail, by now it's probably over 2,000, is that they didn't commit the crimes for which they were jailed. That's why you're able to overturn a conviction, because the person is absolutely and unquestionably innocent. So no, I believe he does great work because he's helping innocent people. Let's see. Anyhow, let's see here. Why are Republicans obsessing over this Khashoggi nonsense? I have no idea. This strikes me as absolutely bizarre. Why on earth would it be the U.S.'s business if Saudi Arabia, which executes more people than any country in the world except for maybe China, and is engaged in a ruthless war against Yemen, why is it our business what they happen to do in Turkey? I mean, it has literally nothing to do with the United States. So, if I had been Trump, I would have said, not our business. We don't care. Let's see. Even though it may be sinful to watch or read, do you believe it's good for Christians to do research on the different forms of Satanism? No, I don't think so. I think there's plenty of Christians who have come out of it who can let you know when there are problems. So what? Democrats, dude, you're just stupid. Okay? Democrats should not all be in prison. You're going to pay for them there? You know, just look, I understand you're speaking in rhetoric, but try not to do it in such a retarded manner, okay? I don't like stupid people saying stupid things. If you keep doing that, I'm just going to kick you off the channel, all right? Let's see. Khashoggi was working for the Washington Post, but was actually a spook from the CIA. Well, I mean, that would at least explain it. You know, I mean, they can't necessarily come out and admit that, but they would seem to almost be admitting it by default by their actions, because nobody can figure out why they care. What's the palpable difference between empire and geopolitical competition? Well, it depends. I mean, empire involves actually putting your troops on the ground or establishing settlers and colonists and ruling over foreign nations. You can compete without ever leaving your home turf, but you cannot establish empire without ruling over other people. And the U.S. is an empire, no question. Was the original Sherlock Holmes character a Sigma? I don't think so, because I don't think that he was... I mean, he definitely had Sigma aspects. Actually, now that I think about it, he was uninterested in women for the most part. He wasn't unsuccessful with them, per se. So I think that's a reasonable description. Let's see. What book is a good Christmas gift for a sister who loves the never-ending story? I would give her The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper. Why are you so excessively judgmental? Because I'm much more intelligent than most of you. Okay. Let's see. He was good with women. Yeah, I mean, I've read all the stories. I'm just trying to think, because I remember he had that relationship with the woman whose name started with an I. He always had that sort of like, she was like a femme fatale. Let's see here. Is taxation theft? I think you can make an argument for it, but I don't think that you can compare the abstract, indirect nature of it to, actual theft. I think that you have to fund. You have to fund some sort of. If you're going to have a government, you have to fund it somehow. So, is it theft? No, I would say no. Taxation can be theft, but it is not intrinsically theft, because if you tax imports, you're not stealing them. Irene Adler, that's it. In Fight Club, is Tyler Durden an alpha and the narrator a gamma? No, there is no difference. The Tyler Durden is the narrator, and they're both, or he is lambda. I mean, you understand Fight Club is gay. The whole thing is a gay metaphor. Are you Jewish? No, I'm Native American. Indian, if you will. What is your opinion on miscegenation? I think that it is unwise. I think that it is hard on the children. And I think that it is very, very tempting for people from the more valued race, because it allows them to trade their the value that the other races put on their race. They are able to trade that for physical attractiveness in their partner. And so I think that that's why it's always going to be very tempting, especially on the low range of the social totem pole. Let's see. What is a lambda? Just means gay. Let's see. It says Fight Club is gay, Vox Day 2018. No, that's not Vox Day 2018. I have an entire essay published in a Ben Bella anthology that lays it out in conclusive detail. You cannot possibly argue with it once you read that essay. I heard you are multilingual. What languages do you speak? Parlo Italiano. I speak in varying levels of competence, none of them fluent. I speak Italian, I speak German, I speak a little bit of French, and I speak a little bit of Japanese. I used to actually speak Japanese quite well, but that was 30 years ago. So, now I remember skoshi desu, very little. Let's see. Is the essay on your website? No, but I should put it up there because it's... Hang on a second. Let me tell you the name of the anthology. Ben Bella. Oh, that's it. You do not talk about Fight Club. I am Jack's completely unauthorized essay collection. Smart Pop by Mercer Schuchart. I remember. That's funny. Anyhow, if you read it, it'll be interesting because I'm guessing that at least some of them will be complaints about my... so Do Not Talk About Fight Club by Ben Bella and Mercer Schuchart. My essay is in there. Let's see. What is your IQ? I am in the range between 3 and 4 standard deviations. Although actually, considering the way that we keep hearing that the IQ is dropping so quickly, that may actually be 4 and 5 standard deviations by now. What is your opinion of Roosh? Why do you have a link to him on your site? My opinion of Roosh is he is a friendly acquaintance of mine. I like and respect him. I don't agree with him, obviously, when it comes to religion. But I think that he is somebody who has a genuine interest in the truth. And I tend to like people who have genuine interest in the truth, regardless of what their personal idiosyncrasies, opinions, or failings may be. Are you planning on expanding what is offered in the history section of Castalia House anytime soon? Well, we're going to be publishing another book by Martin van Creveld soon. But it's a book he's already published before. Martin's really the only historian we have. So I'd love to publish other serious history, but we don't really have anyone writing it. So, yeah, Vox can't be that intelligent, a midwit. Yeah, it's always funny. Midwits find it very, very difficult to believe that anyone can possibly be that much more intelligent than they are. They're so used to being the smartest boy in their class of 30 that they find it very, very difficult to accept that the difference between the highly intelligent and them is actually greater than the difference between them and the norm. And so that's why I tend to dislike midwits so much, is because especially gamma midwits are the worst, because they just hate the fact that they're not even in the running, and they're resentful of it, and they're just constantly trying to prove themselves to you. I mean, even when they're not like taking shots at you, even when they're just trying to like prove that they're a smart boy too, they're really irritating. Is China becoming more or less powerful? More powerful. Is IQ arbitrary? No. Let's see. Midwits, that's most leftist. No, I don't think so. I think that I think midwits are pretty well scattered across the ideological spectrum. Leftists tend to be high midwits or below average. Sounds like you're projecting. No, I'm not. Look, one thing you need to keep in mind when you're listening to me, and especially when you are interacting with me as a reader or a viewer or something, I've been a nationally syndicated columnist since like 2003, I think. Actually, that's not true. I've been a nationally syndicated columnist technically since like 1994. I have literally had people writing to me, people posting comments on my blog, etc., for, 2001. So, 17 years now. So literally nothing you say, no clever, snarky response that you try to throw at me is new. It probably hasn't been new for more than 10 years. Okay? And one of the reasons why people pay attention to me is because I just tell people what I think and what I observe to the best of my ability. I'm not posturing. I'm not exaggerating. If I posture and if I exaggerate, I have literally thousands of people who will come down on me like a ton of bricks. So I don't. Not because I'm particularly virtuous, not because I'm particularly honest. See, here's the thing. They're like this is people bring up all this old stuff that no one's ever been able to utilize, but they think, oh, I'm going to be clever, and I'm going to be clever and somehow discredit or disqualify you. See, he's saying, Daddy was a board member on WorldNet Daily, right? Yeah, my dad was. He was more than a board member. He actually owned part of it. And that had nothing whatsoever to do with my writing a column there. He actually ended up getting involved after I was involved. Joe Farah had been talking to me and trying to get me to contribute a column long before that. Remember, I was a nationally syndicated columnist. I wrote for the St. Paul Pioneer Press, and then I was nationally syndicated by First Chronicle Features, the San Francisco Chronicle, and then Universal Press Syndicate as a game and technology reviewer. So I had a long history in the media long before WorldNet Daily. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that I never accepted a single dime for those columns that I wrote for WorldNet Daily. That was just, my contribution, the same way that you're not being charged to watch this Darkstream. It's just something that I do because I enjoy it. It's an outlet, and it's a way for me to share what I'm thinking with other people. If you value it, great. If you don't listen. But all this, I'm going to somehow take you down and discredit you and disqualify. Nobody has done it in 17 years. You're not going to. Okay? Why are you against free trade? Because free trade doesn't work, because free trade destroys nations, because free trade is fundamentally incompatible with national sovereignty. Free trade is part of the globalist movement to destroy the nations of the world. In fact, if you want to actually put the connections all together, free trade is ultimately satanic. Quote that one. You want to get on my case? You want to try to make me sound crazy and stupid? Free trade is ultimately satanic. Vox Day 2018. And if any free trader wants to try to debate me on it, bring it on. What's the best way to learn a new language? Go live there. Why does Bill Kristol suck so hardcore? Because he is a Trotskyite world revolutionary whose entire being is fundamentally dishonest. It is more important to have strong nations than cheap goodies. Would criticizing democratic identity politics by saying something like Dems divide be good rhetoric? No. It's horrible rhetoric. It's not so much that free trade will enslave you, but if you follow the logic of free trade, it means that if you want to work in robotics, you have to go, and you have a talent for robotics, you have to go live in Korea. It's the whole efficiency of the free trade system depends upon moving everybody all around the world to such an extent that even keeping families together, forget nations, is impossible. Can you recommend a translation of Clausewitz? I have no idea. I just kind of read. I think I've got 2 of them, and I just kind of read whatever like the Penguin version or something. Let's see. Yeah, identity politics is here to stay. Get used to it. Get good at it. Precisely. Here's the thing you need to understand about identity politics. They're like gravity. They're not something that you can be against or be opposed to. Identity politics are what you get when you have multiracial and multi-religious societies. They're inevitable. So you can't, if you don't want identity politics, keep your societies homogenous. Do you believe in the rapture? No, I think that it is extra biblical Christian wishful thinking. It would be wonderful to think that if there's going to be a 7-year tribulation, that Christians get a free pass to skip the whole thing. That doesn't strike me as being consistent with the Bible in any way, shape, or form. Dolpole says, just wrecked free trade in 1 sentence. Thank you. If you want to read more on it, I published my debate with a professor of economics, James Miller. He's got his doctorate from the University of Chicago. Good, strong, solid free trader. We debated, and he actually admitted that I'd raised points that he'd never even thought of before. And it's called On the Existence of Free Trade. You can pick it up from Amazon or Castelia Direct. Can we have an ETA on a future dev stream? Oh, I don't plan these things out. I didn't know I was going to do one tonight. Then I saw that, in fact, I wasn't planning to. I was actually working on the comics, and in fact, I'll show you what I was working on. I was actually working on Alt Hero number 6, The Dark Hunt. And I'm kind of stoked because I kind of like this cover a lot. Yeah, so I was working on this. A little behind on the script, so but we just came out with Alt Hero number 5 today. the print edition. So if you want to pick up one of the gold logo editions, you can do so at Arcade and Direct. But yeah, so I don't plan these things out. Is it mean to ask after A Sea of Skulls? It's not mean, it's just pointless. I'm working on it. It'll be done when it's done. Let's see. Did you read comics when you were a kid? No. I'm totally new to comics. I've never paid any attention to comics whatsoever. So, in regards to graven images, is it more about the worship or idolization of the image than the painting of the image? In my opinion, yes. But I'm not going to start a riot and murder 20,000 people over it. Let's see. Didn't you debate free trade on Tom Wood's podcast? Yes, I did. And Lucius is correct. They are under Paris. Oh, I've read some Asterisk. We had to read Asterisk to help us learn German. The thinkers you have found the most influential. That's easy. Thomas Aquinas, Marcus Aurelius, Aristotle are my big three. Beyond that, I like Sun Tzu. I like Lao Tzu. I'm a big fan of Martin Van Crevel. And I strongly recommend his History of Strategy, which we published a few years ago. I was quite influenced economically by Rothbard and Mises, both of whom I've read quite a bit. But I think that Friedrich von Hayek was the one who is probably the most insightful out of all of them, and he's probably my favorite of the writers. I also read a lot of Peter Drucker, and I'm a pretty big fan of Joseph Schumpeter. Have you interacted with Chuck Dixon much? I talk to Chuck Dixon several times a week. We collaborate on Alt Hero Q. In fact, that's another thing. If you want to, we're already working on this one, but we are doing. We're finishing off the original campaign that we did. This is the one that Chuck and I have been working on most recently together, Alt Hero Q. And if you go to arcaveandcomics.com, we're running the campaign right now. To back the digital editions, it's $25. You can get everything like all 6 gold logo editions. You can get the collected hardcover. There's even get all the books plus the variant hardcover with art by Alan Qua. That's going to be phenomenal. Total collector's item. So if you're at all interested in this kind of stuff, definitely check out Alt Hero Q, the 2.1 campaign on arcaveandcomics.com. Are there any female philosophers of note you would recommend? No. I like Camille Paglia. I mean, Camille Paglia is interesting. Ayn Rand is considerably overrated. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think Ayn Rand is great. I think she has some interesting points, but it's ultimately just more of a reaction to socialism than anything. And although, to be honest, most of my criticisms of her tend to be founded on her literary style, which I find tedious. Finally ordered a bunch from Castelia Direct. Thank you. Gonna lock my Lobster Cult family in a room with Jordanetics for the holidays. Ouch. That's like it's like the charade's gone wrong. Is Atlas Shrugged worth reading? Yeah, it's worth reading. It's worth reading. So, all right. Well, thanks for tuning in tonight. I'm kind of shocked at how many people have showed up, but I'm sure a lot of you are bears. So, thanks, bears. Looking forward to chatting with Owen soon. So have a good evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on the next Darkstream. Have a good evening.